that desperately needs to find their footing. Next up, let's talk about the Memphis Grizzlies. This team, they just they just know how to draft. It feels like they just year after year after year just keep finding a way to find talent, whether it's in the NBA draft, on the undrafted market. Right. Let's think about Jalen Wells. Um, Desmond Bain was taken in the late first round. Another player who comes to mind is, oh man, I don't want to like disrespect anybody by forgetting any of like the key names, but like, okay, Desmond Bain is one that obviously comes to mind. Jalen Wells comes to mind. Scottie Pippen Jr. That's the other name that I didn't want to let slip. Came into the year injured. That's why he almost kind of like flew past. But that's another one. They just had this knack. Vince Williams, another really solid one at the power forward slash center position. They just have this really good knack for finding these diamond in the rough talents at premium prices. And Cedric Coward out of Washington State was one of the biggest enigmas of the NBA draft because 6'5", 206 pounds, rangy wing, has real upside as a defender, knockdown three-point shooter, but he only played like 3 games for Washington State before missing the rest of the year due to injury. And prior to that, he had played on a lesser division level and absolutely killed. But you had to ask yourself whether or not the quality of competition skewed what his productivity was, or was he just that dang good? Well, through 3 games, Cedric Coward, if I'm not mistaken, is their either second or third leading scorer for the Memphis Grizzlies right now. And he is coming off a great performance against the Indiana Pacers, where they won 128-103, where he had 27 points, 6 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and was 6 for 6 from beyond the arc. Cedric Coward has scored in double figures in all 3 games. He's gotten to the free throw line 4 times in all 3 games and is 11 of 12 from the free throw line. He's shooting 70% from the field through 3 games on pretty decent shooting splits. 5 of 5 in the first game against New Orleans, 5 of 9 against Miami in that loss, and then 9 of 13 in the win over Indiana. Cedric Coward was essentially drafted to be a pseudo Desmond Bain replacement to a certain extent. He was actually drafted with the pick acquired from the Orlando Magic in the Desmond Bain trade. And Cedric Coward, for what he is archetype-wise, he has came in and did exactly what he needs to do. I'm glad that outside of the very first game against New Orleans, he has come in and decided he is going to chuck threes. 5 3-point attempts in the Miami game, 6 attempts in that game against Indiana. And I think he should continue on that path of being a 5 to 7 3-point attempt per night kind of guy on the perimeter. He has the positional size defensively to be a high upside defender for that team. I think he's going to be a guy that fits really well next to Ja Morant because he runs in transition. He's a big time athlete around the rim. He's a guy that I think that as a 3-point shooter can be a consistent 37 to 40% knockdown shooter. And he's somebody that I feel like also you can trust to have a little bit of on-ball chops in a second unit next to Scottie Pippen Jr. when he comes back healthy, next to Jalen Wells. I think he can be a really, really solid player for this Memphis Grizzlies team. And I don't think it's a coincidence that they've tried their best to feature him so much in the early portions. And I'm not talking about them trying to like run plays for him, but Cedric Coward is playing. Let me double check this just to make sure. Yes, Cedric Coward is playing the 6th most minutes of any player for the Memphis Grizzlies right now. Basically, their pseudo 6th man on the roster coming off the bench. And he's a guy who I think just fits really well with what they're trying to do. And I think he's a guy that if we're going to be realistic, even when somebody like Scottie Pippen Jr. comes back, he's a guy who I think at some point, depending on how big of a lineup they want to play, I think there's even a point where Cedric Coward could overtake Kentavious Caldwell-Pope in that starting lineup. And you look at the roster construction of this Memphis Grizzlies team. You got John Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. at the top. Katavious Caldwell Pope, you bring in as part of that Desmond Bane trade to get a knockdown 3-point shooter, somebody that has positional defensive size, and you add that on the wing. Hopefully, he has a bounce back 3-point shooting season, because at least for the Memphis Grizzlies' sake, because as far as we're concerned, for the Orlando Magic, he was brought in to do one thing and one thing only, which was to knock down the three ball, and he was not efficient from beyond the arc last season. This season, he is still struggling below 30% from beyond the arc on 6 attempts per game. That's gonna be the thing that makes the question of bumping someone like Cedric Coward to that starting lineup really, really enticing. But they also have Jalen Wells, who I think is a really solid player that fits in as a guy who just does the dirty work things and is just a very good fit next to Ja as another ball handler. Jock Landale, I think, is really solid. Santi Aldama is a really good player at the power forward position, and someone that I think is also going to be trusted in closing lineups depending on the scenario. But Cedric Coward is just another one of these Memphis Grizzlies homegrown products that I think is going to be. I think that Cedric Coward is going to be a NBA all rookie team player. Whether it's first team or second team is kind of debatable. If you had to do it through the first week, I think Cedric Coward debatably could be in that first team. I mean, Cedric could be right up there with Cooper Flag. I think is deserving. Obviously VJ Edgecombe is deserving. Dylan Harper, of course. I don't even want to sleep on him. I felt like I missed him a lot in the last podcast talking about the rookies. So those are three guys that feel like general locks. But beyond that, those other two spots can be kind of up for grabs. And I think Cedric Coward could arguably be one of those guys already. Shout out to the Memphis Grizzlies for just once again being able to find another real talent. They took a swing on a guy who all the scouting reports say the on paper value of Cedric Coward says that he's a player that's going to be a real question mark, because you have to really evaluate the sample size he had, which was a very minimal one, to what the eye test tells you. Because if you cut the film on, if you watch what he was able to do in college, if you watch how he was able to operate as an offensive player on the wing, the eye test tells you this is an NBA made player day one with upside to have like real all-star potential at the wing spot. The paper tells you he might be a work in progress and we have to see what he can do playing against next level athletes. Well, so far, he's been able to translate properly as a 3-and-D wing with the upside of being a knockdown 3-point shooter out the gate, and this Memphis Grizzlies team can really use that. And so far, it's really benefited them. And to kind of translate that to some of the stats, I want to go back to that list I was using for the Charlotte Hornets, because the Memphis Grizzlies, they apply very similarly to some of the stuff they've been able to do productive-wise. And the thing that stood out to me the most, I want to find it again because I think it's just kind of important, is the Memphis Grizzlies are one of the better teams in terms of pace of play. There we go. The Memphis Grizzlies are 4th in the NBA in pace behind the Washington Wizards, the Toronto Raptors, and the Miami Heat. Again, we're going to talk about the Miami Heat a little bit later because they're doing some interesting things right now. But the Memphis Grizzlies are playing fast basketball. They're playing up-tempo basketball. I think they understand that they have real athletes across the board. And Ja Morant, look, all the off-the-court stuff has made people really forget how dope of a point guard Ja Morant is. Ja Morant, when healthy, when right, is a top 5, no lower than top 8 point guard in the NBA. And with the right talent around him, this Memphis Grizzlies team has a real chance to make the postseason and be a dangerous team to see in the first round because of somebody like Ja Morant, who shows up in big moments, alongside dudes like Jaren Jackson Jr., who's developed more of an offensive game with Ja Morant off the floor, and with guys like Jalen Wells, who out the gate showed that they could be a productive rookie and hopefully are able to build onto that. Watch out for the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm not saying that they're going to be this juggernaut team. I'm not even saying they're going to beat your favorite team in the postseason first round. But I'm saying that this is a Memphis Grizzlies team that if everything continues in the right trending direction, especially with John Morant just playing good basketball again, this team is one of them ones that in the Western Conference you're gonna hate to see in the first round because it's gonna be knockdown, drag out, and it's gonna be a series that you wish didn't go too far. Because if you get to a game six, you get to a game seven against this Grizzlies team, playing at this pace, playing with Ja Morant, looking like that all-star caliber point guard that we know he's capable of being again. You could be facing elimination, buddy, because even though everything says that this team is kind of a fringe playoff team at best in this version of Western Conference, that guy at the top paired with guys like Cedric Coward and Triple J should make you a little bit fearful in a winner go home scenario. So even in a play-in tournament game, like, you know, what's it called? 7, 8, 9, 10. Elimination game with Ja Morant, Triple J, Cedric Coward, Jalen Wells. Depending on who they see, I would lean Grizzlies. Even if the Grizzlies come in as underdogs, I would actually end up leaning Grizzlies just because of that guy. But you guys let me know in the comment section down below. Did I miss somebody? I think Cedric Coward, when you factor in that he was drafted, right around the bottom portion of the lottery, and he's been this productive through the beginning. If he can keep this up and be this double-digit scorer, knockdown three-point shooter for the Memphis Grizzlies, I think he will be considered the steal of the 2025 NBA draft. You have to factor in where he was drafted as well. Now, I think some people would say, depending on if VJ Edgecombe outplays Cooper Flagg this year, you got the best player in the draft, rookie-wise, at the third pick. Maybe you could say that that's a steal, but I think in terms of actual positional value, talk about in the draft, to get Cedric Coward just outside of the lottery and he be this productive, if he can keep this consistent throughout the entire year, I think Cedric Coward might just end up being the steal of the 2025 draft. But you guys let me know who your early name is that you're watching as a potential steal from this draft class. Somebody that you could put on my radar for me to keep tabs on, because I'm really interested in this rookie class, but I'm trying to look beyond just that top five, right? I know Ace Bailey's been sick through the first few games of the season, so he's been on a minutes restriction. VJ's been amazing. Cooper's been amazing. Dylan Harper's been very solid. Colin Knipple's been pretty good with Charlotte as well. But I want to see what some of those other guys in the mid-first round, late first round, even early second are able to do. So get me hip. If I'm missing out on somebody, I want to know so I can lock in on them. Next up, let's talk